Hello, Airlines for America. Thanks for having us back again today for the second day. Us, a Force for Good consulting company. We're happy to be talking to the Umbrella Association for all airlines in America. We've come here today with 4 ethical issues that we've found in the airline industry. The first being overbooking of flights, which we find to be an integrity issue. The second being cramped seating, a justice issue. The third, false advertising, an honesty issue. And the fourth, racial discrimination, a common good issue. I'm joined with my colleagues, Nick Spinelli and Billy Wilson today, and they're going to help me present to you these issues.
So the first issue that we want to address within the airline industry today was overbooking and how we felt that it was in violation of the integrity and the dignity of a person today. Now, I first want to remind you of the recommendation that we gave you yesterday, which was to first always solve this problem of overbooking the terminal, and to second, be able to increase the compensation for the passengers that don't feel that their opportunity cost is there in order to leave the plane. Now, I want to point out one example of overbooking today that we felt was a great showcase of how overbooking can be improperly done, which is the United Airlines scandal. Now, for those of you that may not know, in this instance, a United Airlines consumer boarded a plane that was overbooked. There were multiple passengers overbooked on this flight. Now, after compensation was given to all passengers overbooked that were willing to leave, there was one man that stood out that didn't feel that the money was enough for him to get off the plane. And this man happened to be a doctor that had patients to see in the morning. The next thing you know, this man's being dragged off the plane, bloodied. And 24 hours later, it's national news. There are videos being taken, pictures being taken, and everybody knows about this one instance that United had done because of overbooking. Now, we looked at United's mission statement and we saw that they want to make a positive experience for every customer. We feel that this instance especially violates the dignity and integrity that every person deserves in the industry today. We must realize that every person has a place to go and people to see, and that everybody should be treated with the proper respect that they deserve. But in this instance, it was not.
The second issue we'd like to talk to you about is the issue of cramped seating. We feel this is a justice issue, and we can simply define injustice as giving one what they are due. Our recommendation to this problem is rather simple. We would like seats to have standardized lengths and widths on airplanes in America. So this problem started in 1978. Congress passed the Airline Deregulation Bill, which deregulated the whole airline industry. It had the intention of making flight cheaper and more accessible to all Americans, and by and large, it worked very well. However, a lot of freedoms were granted to the airline industry, and we feel that in the decades since this bill has been passed, they've overstepped their bounds. Since 1978, the average American has grown 1.5 inches taller and gained 25 pounds. Now, at the same time, the average size on an airplane seat has shrunk by 10%. And since 2009, the average price of an airline ticket has rose 12%. So what we're seeing is people getting bigger and bigger, paying more and more for smaller and smaller seats. And we don't feel that's giving your customers what they're due. We don't feel it's just. Now, the second, more serious of the 2 issues that has to do with cramped seating is the safety issue that comes from it. One of the rules left in 1978 was that all airplanes must be able to be evacuated within 90 seconds or less. Now, there have been multiple circumstances in which this rule has been broken, but 2 circumstances that were heavily covered by the media that you might remember was in 2009 and 2015. In 2009, a plane landed on the Hudson River. It was all over the news. It took those passengers 120 seconds to get out of that plane and standing on the wings of the plane. In 2015, there was a fire on the Las Vegas tarmac. It took those passengers 180 seconds to get off that plane. This is a serious safety violation that is a risk to all customers every time they step on airplanes. Now, again, our recommendation is fairly simple. If you standardize seat sizes to give your customers the treatment they deserve, and to be precautious with their lives. It'll make you a better business.
So the third issue that we found to be most germane within this industry is false advertising. And we feel that at times this can be in violation of truth. We saw that especially with Southwest Airlines. They were recently fined $200,000 for a fare sale that was too good to be true. This sale was listed for about 5 of every 200 passengers. But little did these consumers know that they can't actually get this $59 one-way flight they're expecting, and that this company is directly lying to them. Now, this $200,000 fine might seem like a slap on the wrist to many in comparison to the profit margins that big companies like this have. But it's not, especially when news like this is getting out to consumers and they are realizing that these companies are directly lying to them in terms of these advertisements that they're giving. Now, the recommendation that I wanted to remind you of that we gave yesterday was to first, you, Airlines for America, be able to advocate for stricter regulations within false advertising, which in turn the companies can follow, which will lead to better profit and image and customer satisfaction within the industry.
The fourth aspect of the airline industry that we'd like to address is that of racial discrimination and how it affects the common good. Discrimination is already prohibited under federal law in many instances. But in 2017, the NAACP issued a travel advisory to African Americans traveling with American Airlines. They did this because they received an inappropriate number of complaints from African Americans on some discrepant behavior happening on the flights. That being said, what does that do? Well, you're judging who can get on your plane and who can't get on your plane based not on what someone has done or what they have failed to do, but based solely on the color of their skin. That, we believe, is in violation of a company's ethics, especially whenever they state them in their code of conduct. We addressed 4 issues here today: that of overbooking, cram seating, false advertising, and racial discrimination. We don't believe that the airline industry is respecting the dignity of every person whenever they are able to show up to the airport with their ticket, with their plans in place for their destination, and right before they're able to take off, they're told that they have to deboard. We don't believe that airlines are respecting the justice that is due to them whenever airlines are not able to properly ensure their safety to evacuate a plane within the 90 seconds as regulated by the government. We don't believe that airlines are respecting the justice that's due to a customer whenever they are shrinking the size of their seat, all while at the same time jacking up the price for them to sit in it. We don't believe that airlines are being honest to the consumer whenever they're advertising a fare for $59, but with their fingers crossed behind their back, they know that no one is going to be able to achieve that price. We don't believe that the airlines are contributing to the common good whenever they are judging who gets on their plane and who doesn't get on their plane, not based on the merits of the situation, but only based on someone's skin color. We believe that if you take these recommendations and lobby for them to become industry-wide standards, we believe your industry will continue to become a force for good. Thank you so much.